Welcome to Money Mavericks, the podcast where we explore the dynamic world of finance, investment, and entrepreneurship.
I'm Kirk Drake.
And I'm Daryl Hicks. Together, we're here to bring you the latest insights, expert opinions from the trailblazers who are redefining success in the financial world. Joel Sherlock, welcome to the Money Mavericks podcast. Super excited to have you in here for this rich conversation. Obviously, you and I have known each other for a few years. I know a little bit about your background. It's a pretty rich one with the race car driving and the businesses that you founded and co-founded and private equity side. But Kirk and I are really excited to kind of dig in and have this conversation for the next little bit. Would love to start, though, on kind of your origin story and how you started out as an entrepreneur. I think the audience would really benefit from some of those stories.
My grandfather was in the life insurance investment sales business. And I think when I graduated high school, I was quite independent and just said, thanks, mom and dad. You guys have been great, but I'm out. I say that jovially where they were like, okay, buddy and I bought a terrible little condo in Kelowna, but it was our terrible little condo. And then we fixed it up with, painted the walls and did all this. And then, 6 months in, first year of college, he says, I fell in love and you buy me out of this. This girl and I are going to move in together. And I was like, oh, let me check the couch cushions for some money and see what we can do. And so we ended up having to sell it, made a profit on it. And then I bought another unit, did the same reno, and then was like, I'm going to get a roommate. And then I'm in control of this. And then I thought, I wonder if I could sell this one. And so first year of college, made some good money, flipped 2 properties in real estate. And then I kind of was like, hey, everyone's telling me I'm going to get my securities degree and, be getting coffee for stockbrokers and making 35 grand a year. I just made way more than that flipping these 2 pieces of real estate. And I really liked that. So started to focus a lot more of my time, effort, energy on the property world. Then the bank wanted me to have a job. And I thought, I have a job. I'm, flipping real estate. And so that landed me in car world because I thought, this is going to be fun. I'll sell cars. I can come and go and make good money. And so I submitted my application to BMW because I had a relationship there, and the sales manager thought I was nuts. And he was like, so you just want to start at BMW? And I was like, well, I can't sell anything I don't believe in. And I guess I had a compelling story. So off I went into that world and met a lot of really interesting people. I was number 2 in Canada for sales on that side and really enjoyed that. But, real estate was where I was making wealth. And this was my fun job during the day that made the bank happy. And just kind of grew from there. And then I ended up starting a real estate brokerage with one of my realtors. I've said this on a number of interviews, I started a real estate brokerage before I had a real estate license. That's backwards. I wouldn't recommend that to any of the viewers thinking about it. So, my path has been pretty abnormal. From there, that was a real estate brokerage called Vantage West, which is still in the Okanagan Valley. It's the number 1 independent. My business partner, I sold the business to him, and he's still running it to this day. It's doing very well. We started a development marketing company. So the teams in real estate were quite different, and that's Fortune Marketing. So that's still up and running and doing very well. So my life has kind of been in these see a problem, solve it, create a business around it and build it up, and have had some great wins.
I hear a few trends in there and it's like, well, this is a thing that I want to do. And I think that this is going to work for me. But now I have this problem over here. Well, just let me find a way to solve the problem over here. I don't know many people that when they're starting a real estate brokerage, all of a sudden say, well, now we're going to open up a separate business for the marketing piece. Isn't the traditional path that you just kind of outsource that? Or how do most real estate brokerages want to solve that
Kind
problem?
of. I mean, that's halfway through that origin story. And then it goes on to manufacturing and a whole bunch of different tangents. But the trend really is, if we use the real estate side, right? If you have a licensed realtor, which in the brokerage world, you're hanging the licenses of realtors, right? And there's kind of 2 really different mindsets. You give somebody a lockbox key and you go, you can sell anything, go make some money. And then there's the development world where it's like you take a contract for this building and you're in the show suite and you want to just sell the suites that are available there. It's 2 very different mindsets. And we found that some agents succeeded and excelled over here. Some of our team excelled over there. So we really just formed 2 companies or broke one out because there was an opportunity for it.
So at what point does the manufacturing business come in? Because when you and I first met, that's what
Yeah.
you were doing. And I'm like, okay, so BMW.
Yeah, keep going down there, in the BMW world. And then I got fully into the real estate world, but lots of doctors and lawyers and people who were clients of mine in the BMW world came with me into real estate.
How did you make that relationship flip? Hey, I sold you a car. Do you want to invest in this new thing? Like, I feel like that's a
The interesting part is my sales style has always been very relational. And the car world was like, everybody's fighting over ups. And, somebody walks on the lot and it's like, oh, this one's mine, go and get it. I sat in my office and to the dismay of other people who were on the sales floor, people would walk in and they're like, hey, is Joel here? I was told I need to talk to him. I had a much deeper relationship,
sure.
and to me, it was so easy because not to pick on car salespeople, but real estate, car sales, I think the bar for service is quite low. If you say, I'm going to call you back, and then you do, or, if you're talking to one of your clients and they're like, hey, I need my car, my winter tires on or whatever, hell, come get it. Let me come pick it up. Right. And then I'll drop off the service loaner and then I'll take it back. And now that I'm no longer at the dealership, maybe I'll stop by my real estate project on the way. And
Did you ask your boss if he could do it or you just did it?
I just did it.
Yeah, because I feel like most
Yeah.
people like I need to ask if I can go pick up the car, and then there's this whole liability conversation, right? And
Oh, no. I mean, they knew I was doing it and I would take
okay,
one of the loaners and they kind of encouraged it, but I would just say, I'm going to get the Smith's car. I'm going to get the Johnson's car, whatever it was.
right.
But later on in life, it was part of what made me leave the auto world. And I'm very grateful for my experience there. But I used some of those really deep relationships I had. And, I was talking to a client and he wanted a Bentley. Well, I worked at a BMW store, but called through our network, found a car, sold it to him over here, had it shipped from Calgary to Vancouver, went and got it, met him there. I guess I did things differently. And I
Yeah,
think that's probably a pattern in my life. So when I made that transition over, I just sent them all a note and said, hey, I'm doing this now. Thank you so much for your time over here. And then they were like, hey, we're looking to sell this or buy that. And it was very organic.
mm,
It wasn't, forced or kind of
right.
by design. I think it was just I valued those relationships and in turn they valued what I was doing.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
awesome.
One of the things I just realized as we were chatting is that I met both of you wonderful human beings through Jason Gangard. So there's some commonality there. As you were talking about how people would walk into the BMW dealership and they'd just be saying, like, where's Joel? I need to talk to him. They're all hustling on the floor and you're sitting in your office, just having them come into you. The ability to get out there and network and build relationships, seeking to put yourself out there. That's how we got connected in with Jason, who runs this wonderful mastermind where he brings entrepreneurs and founders together. I know that mentorship and building a network is something that's really valuable to you, Joel, and that's
Yeah.
definitely created a significant amount of value and opportunity. Maybe talk to me a little bit more about, and you can kind of finish the origin story too, because I know it gets way more interesting as you get into manufacturing and some of these other, and the private equity and some of the other crazy things that you've done. And I think there's even some race car driving in there at some point. I don't know exactly what point that comes
This was
in
in the
there,
years
but
of race car driving. Yeah, it was through the relationships at BMW and going through their driver training program. And then, it moved on to Audis and the like. But I mean, from there, I went down with some docs to play golf and look at some real estate in Scottsdale with them, really just to get out of the winter in Canada. And then spotted some opportunities there. And you're buying homes in 7, 8, 9 in the States, in Scottsdale specifically, where you're paying less than replacement cost and the rental market was thriving. So that was kind of the first pool of capital that came together to make some of those investments. And then we started to sell some of those, reinvest into Canadian commercial real estate, and then met one of our tenants who had a fertilizer manufacturing business. That was kind of the first time we crossed that chasm and made an investment into an operating business like that. But I mean, I love the boardroom some days, driving a forklift other days, and actually like being able to create value. In real estate, it was a lot of just kind of copy, paste, repeat, and wait. Whereas here, you can really roll up your sleeves and start getting stuff done. We had great success with that, and we sold that to a publicly traded business and sold another division, the lighting division of that company went to Scott's, like the fertilizer guys.
mm,
And that was just a lot of fun and it was lucrative. And then I kind of started to focus a little bit more time there. Started financing some specialty equipment because we had the mortgage background. We're now in this like manufacturing world, and if you try and get a loan for a brewery canning line or like a forklift, banks don't always understand it. and companies need it, companies with really strong balance sheets. So that was kind of easy. And that was a birth of Spectrum Leasing.
Really important there, though, that you said, which is, I think people think you walk into your bank and you apply for a loan in a commercial business perspective, and that they don't realize that most banks, they understand multifamily housing. Sure, they understand financing a commercial property.
Yeah.
You might have some that could understand restaurants, but other than that, your local community financial institution, generally speaking, is a generalist, and they don't know anything about your specialty business. And if they don't understand your business, there's no way they're loaning you money for it. Silicon Valley Bank did a ton of winery and vineyard financing as like a niche. There's no one else doing that, right? So if you're in the wine industry, I happen to have a winery, you're out of luck in that mode until another group comes around, which is usually 3 to 5 people that understand that business that the bank hires to do that underwriting and the rest of that. And it just completely, and obviously with your diverse set of businesses, did you have the same bank every time or same banker, or did you have to find that expertise in each and every time?
We had great relationships with our banking managers, and we would ask, like, what do you like and what does your bank hate? And you start to learn that, okay, this is a file for that manager. So, we still have relationships with 3 of the big Canadian 5. And, and then in the US, we're developing more relationships for our things down here. Europe, same thing, Latin America, same thing, right? And it's just a matter of why not ask people, what do you want? What kind of business do you want? And then bring them that, right? Why try and put a square peg into a round hole?
I mean, it's like trying to give the Bentley guy a BMW, right?
Yeah. And for us, it was like, hey, like, this is less risk than financing a car, which is depreciating every month. And, like, if the guy's running a brewery, he's going to pay for his canning line before he's not going to default on that. He's probably going to default on his mortgage before he misses that. Because if he can't can the beer, he can't sell the beer, he can't make any money.
Well, there's an important piece in there too, which is the bank never wants to own the asset ever. They don't want your house. They don't want your business. They don't have any idea either A, how to get rid of it, or B, how to operate it to make it work, right?
When you look at like a piece of equipment at a 50% loan to value, you almost feel like, it's like that loan to own side of things where it's like, listen, you pay this interest rate, or we take the equipment back, repurpose it, and might make more money. I think now that we've been in that industry for some time, we have taken some hits, but net we're up. But, like you look at gyms, for instance, if you got a gym owner who's got a lease, done the TIs, and needs to finance all the equipment he's got to put into a gym. If he's got this many members and the numbers make sense, that industry is not going anywhere. The only thing you're worried about is if, some Planet Fitness or somebody opens next door, or COVID, which certainly wasn't in our business model, but we were out of gyms at that point. We started to finance some pretty specific extraction equipment, and ultimately it was crazy to me because we were buying whatever the team wanted, whatever they had in their build spec. And then this machine would break and we just bought that group a spare pump and they couldn't share it. This team learned something, but couldn't talk to that team. So I went out to standardize to one platform in that world. And the manufacturers basically told me where to go and how to get there. I didn't like that. And so, if you look at the trend, it was like, hey, let's see if we can build our own. I went to some oil and gas engineers that I knew from my real estate days. And I said, could you build me 5 of these? And they said, what kind of pressure? I said, 4,000 or 5,000 PSI. And they were like, oh, that's cute. And I was like, perfect. And that was the birth of Italis, which is now the largest manufacturing business for that kind of extraction equipment in the globe. Offices on 4 continents. And that's been my biggest success to date. So it's been a fun run and not done yet.
On Money Mavericks, we don't just talk about making money. We explore the innovative strategies and bold decisions that drive real change. Whether you're an experienced investor, a budding entrepreneur, or just someone looking to make smarter financial choices, we've got something for you.
Every week, we're going to sit down with industry leaders, visionaries, and mavericks who share their journeys, challenges, and breakthroughs, from contrarian views on market trends to the secrets behind building a successful startup. You get an inside look at what it takes to thrive in today's economy.
And we promise to keep it real, engaging, and most importantly, actionable. No jargon, no fluff. Just straightforward conversations that you can apply to your own financial journey.
So get ready to challenge your thinking, expand your knowledge, and take control of your financial future. This is Money Mavericks,
where we turn financial dreams into realities and mavericks into legends.
What's really cool about this is that this is not unique for entrepreneurs, at least a certain cohort of entrepreneurs who I've met. Like even for myself, I was like building cybersecurity appliances on Linux boxes and, somehow schmoozed my way into the Twin Towers in New York in the late 90s, installing those for people. But all of a sudden in 2001, I'm in an e-commerce business and we're like, running sales through over a dozen call centers scattered around the world, bringing in all kinds of sales in direct response and e-commerce and subscriptions. And I'm like, how in the world do you make that leap and go from there? But it was a client that I had in my cybersecurity business where I'm like connecting his IBM AS400 token ring mainframes to his Ethernet mainframes. And
We don't
then,
understand anything you're saying there.
I'm just nodding my head.
It's
I have
okay.
no
That's
idea what you're
way
talking
too
about.
old for me.
yeah. But like just like being in this place and then seeing an opportunity and getting curious, I think too, like asking questions and being like a charismatic, sincere, high integrity person. All of a sudden you see these opportunities. Next thing you know, you're off in this other business and growing it up. So, I mean, I knew elements of this story, and that's why I really wanted you to walk through it. I mean, starting from like, hey, I'm just going to be a house flipper to now I'm like working in BMW to now I've got a real estate brokerage to now I've got this marketing business. And then the really interesting leap for me is, okay, now we're going to take this money that we made over here. We're going to do commercial real estate. But what are my clients doing? I'm renting office space or selling office space to these really big companies. Hey, isn't that really cool? Look at what they're doing. And next thing you know, you're solving problems for them. Hey,
Yeah.
let's do this, let's do that. Like,
I wish it was like a lot of it. Like if we look at that side, it was like they came to us and said, "Hey, can you build us worth 40,000 square feet?" And I was like, "Wow, that's a big leap from where you are now. You're in like 15. So how are you going to make this jump?" And they were like, "Oh, we're just going to expand into the US and there's a huge market opportunity." And we started talking about it, but there wasn't a business plan. It wasn't kind of, we just do things and it works out was kind of the summary. And I was like, "Guys, you need a plan. You need to put financials together." And they were like, "Well, you do it." And I was like, "No, that's not really your landlord's job. That's your business partner's job." And it was a very kind of organic conversation. And then we started talking about the margins they had and the business was great. And I was like, "Hey, man, there's an opportunity here."
Well, I think people don't realize a lot of times that like that small business that gets to that point where they're going to really take a big bet and scale up, that most of the time the people on the team don't have any experience in writing that business plan or putting the corporate infrastructure in place to be able to do it. And they need to have someone
Totally.
that can help them in that, right?
Yeah. I say this a lot now. Like I'm a phenomenal kind of 0 to 10 guy, right? Like I love the white space of new ideas. Daryl, you'd mentioned like that curiosity standpoint. I think my curiosity score is very, very high. From a portfolio side, I love the businesses that are like cash flowing and going to grow 8 to 10% this year and have very little downside risk. I know I'm not the person to be in those. I love building them up to that point and then getting out of the way.
That's the Buffett model of like, I don't care if this thing grows. The revenue metric isn't the number one thing. It's the cash flow that I'm able to use someplace, right? Like
my partner and operations lead on many of our projects has this analogy around like aircrafts. And this is your business model. This is your marketing plan. These are your sales teams, but cash flows the gas. You can have a very inefficient design. And if you just have enough gas, you can push through it. You can have the best design in the world, but if you run out of fuel, you're falling out of the sky.
right.
Yes. And there's something else that came out through your story, which really resonated to me. I've got teenagers and I've been thinking a lot about what are they going to do? What's their career going to be? But then as I spend some time thinking back on my own career and other entrepreneurs that I know, I think what's more important than anything else is just getting yourself out there and getting started. It's like that old analogy of you can turn a steering wheel on a car as much as you want. If it's not moving, it's not going to do anything, right? Getting out there and getting moving, even if the car is pointed in a 180-degree opposite direction of where you think you ultimately want to be or where you will end up a decade later, the key is get out there, get moving, and then you can turn the wheel and kind of pivot, and opportunities start coming to you just because you're out there on the field of play.
And again, like the curiosity, right? And you touched on mentorship. I was in the car industry and this guy came in a nice Porsche and I started chatting with him and he had a background in real estate. We started talking about that. And then next thing you know, he's like, I really enjoyed this conversation. Like, we should grab a coffee. I'm like, see you guys. I leave, go and sit down with the gentleman named Peter for coffee. And then he told me about a Ferrari that he bought that was arriving. So a month later, he shows up in the dealership and he said, hey, I just got it. Wanted to show it to you. And it was just kind of a very nice relationship that started from being curious. And, that's been a lifelong mentor of mine now. And where that really changed was Peter and I were talking about a car. And I said, hey, I think it was that first year of the Gullwing Mercedes. And he had a home in Victoria. We were in Kelowna at a charity event. And he said, hey, I'm waiting for mine, but I think it's going to be a couple of years. And I said, I know the guys at the Mercedes side. I think somebody, we were talking yesterday and they just canceled an order. And long story longer, he ends up saying, well, if I can have it, I'll buy it. So we went over the next day. He bought it and he said, do you want to drive it to Victoria with me? And I had a crazy day full of back-to-back meetings. And I just said, absolutely. Like, this guy's a very successful business person. And I thought, like, 8 hours in the car with him, like, that's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And so I just said to my assistant, I said, clear my day. And she was like, what are you, nuts? It's like back to back today. I said, no, this is more important. And all of this can be rebooked. This is once in a lifetime. That really changed the trajectory of my life, I feel, where Peter done huge deals and, getting into these conversations and then having him include me in some of those meetings or boardrooms or relationships. I sat on the board of one of his companies and it just really kind of opened my eyes to business is this game. And if you put more zeros on it, it's still the same fundamentals.
I had no idea that that's how you met Peter, because I know
Yeah.
how impactful he was as a mentor to you.
He's doing his book tour right now. He's got more energy than me. He's still doing deals. He's amazing.
There's a lot to unpack in that as well. Like, there's a lot of people out there, like, how do I find a mentor? How do I get into a network and start having these conversations with interesting, bright people? And I think, one, just like what we were talking about earlier, get yourself out there on the field of play, working at a BMW car dealership. Like, when you look at where you end up now with the leasing division and the manufacturing on, 4 different continents and all this kind of stuff, giving yourself permission once the opportunity arrives as well to just say, you know what, I'm going to trust my gut and I'm going to go after this, which actually, I think there's probably a lot of that comes out in your story as well. Like, how much has gut instinct and trusting it and moving on it played a role in where you're at versus, here, because we talked a lot about, like, okay, there has to be a business plan, right? Show me the numbers. What are the fundamentals? That's very rational and structured and orderly. Whereas, clearing your calendar and jumping in a car with Peter for 8 hours because it feels like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, there's no spreadsheet up for that.
There's certainly some impulsivity in my personality, without a doubt. I would say that, a lot of people came out of private equity into entrepreneurship. I kind of went from entrepreneurship into private equity. I think I've slowed down and gotten way more diligent than I used to be, right? And especially when it was like, sounds like a good deal, let's do it. And now it's like, sounds like a good deal, let's figure out the people involved, let's figure out the plan, what are the risks on it? Like, I'm far more diligent than I was, call it a decade ago or 2.
So obviously you're not done yet. You're not retired. I would love to hear what's got you excited right now. Like, what are the nudges that you're kind of following where you think you're going to go next and why?
To steal a line from Peter, Peter and I have had this conversation, like, boring is very sexy to me right now. Those industries like manufacturing, for instance, like capitally really intensive, pretty fractured, not a lot of innovation. It's kind of the 80-20, right? 80% is not a lot of innovation. 20% is probably on the leading side of innovation, right? If you go into a Tesla factory, it's certainly not in the group we're looking at, right? I think there's been a lot of jokes around like middle market private equity firms snapping up all the HVAC companies and that kind of stuff, right? But, we got into some really interesting opportunities in like food manufacturing. I think there's a lot of waste there, industrial wastewater, like, just kind of things that because of our expertise in extraction, we started to see these kind of linked tangential opportunities that maybe not a lot of people are focused on, but they have kind of like these underlying, like, I think water's always going to be important. I think energy's always going to be important. Like waste from people's houses isn't going anywhere. Food needs isn't going anywhere. So like those boring kind of things are cash flowing markets are very interesting. And then there's still that venture component that I love of just startups and really cool Grand Slam like ideas that are at 0 right now or at 10 right now.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Money Mavericks. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.
Stay connected with us on social media and visit our website for exclusive resources, episode transcripts, and more.
Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, making smart moves, and turning your financial dreams into realities.
You've been listening to Money Mavericks, where Mavericks become legends.